Hi, everybody. I am really happy to be able to talk about the brand new album from Paul McCartney. The album is called McCartney 3, and here it is. I've been waiting to hear this for quite some time. I had an opportunity a week or two ago to listen to this album in advance through a link that people were passing around, and the quality wasn't as good as it could have been. I heard, so I thought I'm just going to wait for the disc to come out, and that's ultimately what I did. I waited for the disc. Didn't matter whether it was going to be CD or vinyl, whichever one I got first, I would listen to, and it turned out to be the CD. This has a gatefold to it, and I'm told that when we get different versions of the vinyl colored LP wax stuff that's going to come out, we're going to get different gatefolds, different pictures. I don't know if that's true or not. That remains to be seen, but we'll find out about that. And the back cover I'm very happy with. Let me tell you why. Because on the internet, there were photos going around of Paul the way he looks now. Very, very good photos that were taken by his daughter Mary. And one of them in particular was a really good profile picture of Paul. And I said, wow, I hope they use that as the back cover. What a shot. Sure enough, that's the one they went with. I love that picture of Paul. I think it shows the man, how he's matured through the years from, say, in his solo career, the early days of McCartney in 1970, all the way till now, 50 years later. And I love it. So I'm glad they decided to use that. You know, so here's the disc. Okay, and it comes with a booklet, and a very good one at that. I love how the back of the booklet says, Made in Rockdown. That's Paul's term for lockdown, a little play on that. And I don't know if he invented it or not. It's probably a common thing that people could think up, but I like it. I'm glad they give you lyrics. You get lyrics in here, thankfully. Whenever I listen to a new CD, I always like to follow the lyrics, and the pictures here are really nice too, taken by Mary, I believe. I didn't check the credits, but I'm pretty sure these are all Mary McCartney photos. Um, I think they did a good job here, Paul and Mary. Presenting Paul in his mature years. I really like the look that Paul has. So very happy with the booklet. Now, of course, a lot of you know that I have to mention Paul McCartney's voice here. Okay, it's inevitable. Now, I'm going to tell you how I approach this album before I listen to it, and how I think anybody out there should approach listening to it. Okay, first of all, Paul McCartney's 78 years old, and he's older, obviously. But it's not just because of his age that his voice has started to sound a little weakened, and that he's kind of different from how he was in 64 or even 1984 or 94. Um, its age is part of it, but I think with Paul, it's mostly because of the fact that as the decades went on, he's really strained his voice and used it to entertain us so, you know, vigorously that he's kind of like worn it out. And I've said for a long time now that I think that Paul should stop touring. Just my opinion. Paul loves to tour. He can do as he likes. But the pandemic that came around made it a necessity for Paul not to tour. And he had no choice but to stay and rest his voice. And I think personally that the rest did his voice a world of good. And we'll get into that as the songs go on. What I'm going to be driving at with that, but also his speaking voice, because Paul's speaking voice was noticeably a lot more hoarse than it's been lately. Lately, I've heard some new interviews with Paul. One of them was a almost, I think, a 2 hour or so interview with Howard Stern, where Paul's voice today is a lot smoother than it was. Used to be a lot more rough, his aged voice, and also some other interview. I forget the name of it, but an interview where he was briefly discussing the songs he did 50 years ago on McCartney, the first McCartney solo album, and I thought his voice sounded smoother there too. So Paul's voice has improved, I think, by the rest. And I'm happy to say that. Now, when you're reviewing this album, when you're listening to the album, you have to. A lot of people already have their minds made up. They're going to hate it, that it's going to stink, and they want to make fun of it. Okay. What I'm asking you to do is the way I looked at this. Try to realize what you're listening to here. First of all, you're talking about a McCartney album. And when I say McCartney album, I'm not talking about a Beatles album. And I'm not talking about Paul McCartney on Ram. I'm not talking about Paul McCartney on, let's say, London Town. I'm not talking about Paul McCartney on Tug of War or even Flaming Pie. I'm talking about the McCartney album series, the solo one man band. Paul plays all the instruments himself here, like he did on the McCartney one album, soon to be called, I'm sure, McCartney 1 from 1970, McCartney 2 from 1980. This is Paul doing everything. He plays all the instruments, and he's basically, what he does in these albums is experimenting. He's experimenting on some songs that he says he wrote some new songs, and he went back and tweaked some older songs and finished some older ones off. And he's basically experimenting, noodling around, playing with instruments, and trying to make something very homespun and just kind of like rough off the top like that. So it's not fair to look at this album expecting another Band on the Run. That's just not fair to the artist, I don't think. So how does this album fare as a McCartney album, the trilogy, 1, 2, and 3? That's how I looked at it, and I also looked at it as a perspective of a person who's grown up with McCartney since he's 3 or 4 years old. When I was 3 and 4 years old, for example, I had the 45 RPM record of "We Can Work It Out," and I played that on my little record player. And that's when I was first listening to Paul. "We Can Work It Out," songs like that. Then as I grew up, I listened to him doing stuff like Jet. I listened to him doing Band on the Run, and I listened to him Uncle Albert and With a Little Luck and all that. And I grew up with him right through the 80s, 90s, and 21st century. So I'm also growing with Paul. I'm getting older. We're all getting older. So you have to look at it that way. Okay? That's how I'm looking at it. And I think when you look at it that way, you can appreciate this. If you're not going to give it the chance that it deserves, and you're not going to look at it from the proper perspective, you're jipping yourself before you even get started. Okay? So I also think Paul has learned how to write songs and how to sing to work on his strengths and his weaknesses. He knows how to handle himself now. I think he's getting more knowledgeable at that, and he's acquitting himself very well like that. Because this album, for me, overall was a pleasant surprise. There are 11 tracks on this album. Out of the 11 tracks on this album, folks, I would say that I like 9 of them. I've listened to this album now 3 times. This is not, I'm not going to call this my official review. I want to make that clear. I actually should have made it clear in the beginning because people are probably skipping this part. But very clear to say, this is not my final official review. This is what I call my initial impressions or my first impressions. This is it upon listening to the album 3 times and getting a good feel for these and where I stand now. It's likely to change as the time goes on. So this is how it is today. Let's get started now and talk about the songs. First song, the album opens with the track called Long-Tailed Winter Bird, and it's a great rollicking opening. I love the way it opens. It's got a stinging, biting guitar. That guitar really is rocking. I love the way it is. It's Paul really going right out and letting himself go, and playing the drums. And it's got tasty drum patterns, different sounds to it. It's mostly an instrumental track. It's not a vocal track really. But Paul occasionally injects words in there, like phrases like "Do you miss me? Do you feel me? Do you touch me?" But basically mostly instrumental, most of it. And I think it starts to out setting the mood. This is going to be kind of a guy having fun and experimenting during pandemic lockdown right from the beginning. And then it goes into the second track. Now, the second track is called Find My Way. And when this particular album was starting to circulate, people were saying, who listened to it, there's not really a single on here. There's not really a good choice for a single. I don't think there was an official single, or there is an official single. But I think it's pretty much agreed, I would concur too, that Find My Way is probably the closest thing to a single. In fact, on the little hype sticker, it says the new album, written, performed, and produced by Paul McCartney, and it says featuring Find My Way on the bottom there. So in other words, they're all hyping this. So Find My Way, it's a fun track, and I think I may be the only one who noticed this. I haven't heard anybody say this, but whenever I hear the song, for some reason, the first thing that strikes me is I think of Tom Petty's song, Learning to Fly. Anybody else? Or am I crazy? I'm not saying the whole thing sounds like it. It doesn't, but I hear vibes in there of "Learning to Fly," Tom Petty at the beginning. I don't know, but the lyrics are basic on it. They're not great lyrics, but it doesn't have to be. And I don't know if you would agree, but I find that for me, if I'm really enjoying a song and the melody's good, the song is fun, I'm having a good time. Sometimes it doesn't matter that the lyrics are not anything spectacular. In fact, sometimes it's fun because the lyrics are so simple. Then on the other hand, sometimes if you're not enjoying a song, you might say, "Oh, the lyrics are terrible on that." Isn't that funny how that works? It tends to go like that. But anyway, I enjoy "Find My Way." It's a good second track. Number three is the track called "Pretty Boys," and this is the first time when you can tell that Paul's voice has aged and weakened a bit. But he's still pretty good. He's still controlling it in such a way that right now, at this point in his life, he sounds older and wizened in the song and on the track. Uh, Still pretty good. It's a mid-tempo kind of song, mid-tempo in range, and I wouldn't say again it's nothing outstanding. It's not the most memorable song in the world, but it's enjoyable and it's an easy first three songs to listen to. We get to the fourth track, and it's called Women and Wives. This is a very soft piano song. To me, it sounds, Paul, the way he sings, it's like he's doing a satire on a preacher. Almost sounds like he's a preacher delivering a sermon, the way he's singing, and in there you can decipher uplifting words, stuff like, "Hear me, women and wives, hear me, husbands and lovers. What we do with our lives seems to matter to others." So, who can argue with that? Again, it's uplifting, it's being positive, it's trying to speak in a good way about, I guess, how to be and how to live and how to treat others. So it's Paul's typical optimism, and it works. As I say, it's kind of a soft, slow song, and I like the style in which Paul's doing it, kind of like preachy in this particular. It's good. The next track, in number five, happens to be right now my favorite track on the album. Okay, this is my favorite track as of now, and it is called Lavatory Lil. Now, everybody knew when they heard the title. I heard this title in advance a long time ago, and I said, "This is going to be fun. Maybe it sounds like Polythene Pam, or it sounds like Lovely Rita, or something like that." Or as Paul would sing it in the song, Lavatory Lil. So, Lavatory Lil, my favorite song so far. It's got a bouncy guitar. It's a bouncy guitar rocker. Uh, it's got trite lyrics. There we go again. But this is an example of what I was speaking about earlier. Trite lyrics, but satisfying. They're very satisfying because they're so simple in this context of this bouncy, fun, bumpy rocker. He has lines in here like, "You think she's a winner when she's cooking you your dinner, but she's really moving in for the kill. Lavatory Lil." It's great. And, that there were answering vocals, backup vocals, or answering vocals that repeat, Lavatory Lil, back and forth. And it took me a while to remember, hey, that's Paul singing. Paul's also doing the accompanying vocals too. So that's kind of fun to hear Paul like accompanying himself on it. I love that. There is one problem with this song, Lavatory Lil, though. One problem with it. I'm sorry. You know what the problem is? It's too damn short. It's too short. But isn't that the sign of a song that you like? You ever hear that a good song or will leave you hungering for more? You know what I mean? Oh, I wish it was another verse or two, because I really like that. Okay. Now, there are only two songs on this album that I don't like out of 11 songs, and we're coming to the first one now. Track number six is a song that I really don't like. I listened to it three times, and it was close to excruciating every time. It's a song called "Deep Deep Feeling," and I call it the worst song on the album, easily for me. Doesn't really go anywhere musically. It's boring and meandering. I never like to skip songs when I'm listening to albums. My whole thing is, I believe an album is a full piece of music, and I don't like, even on a CD where it's easy to just press the next track, I don't like skipping songs. But I got to tell you, this may be a skipper. This may be one that I'm going to skip. There's a line that Paul sings somewhere in this song. "Sometimes I wish it would go away." Indeed. I tell you that. And you know what's the worst part of it? This is the longest track on the album, too. It's over 8 minutes long. So if you're not really getting into this and you're bored and yawning out of your socks, you don't want to stick around for over 8 minutes. So we'll see how it goes over time, folks, but I don't see it growing on me anytime. So that's track number 6. Number 7, things improve mightily with the next track. It's called Slidin'. And Slidin' is a hard rocker. Now, I don't want to call it heavy metal because it's not really, but the closest thing you could loosely call heavy metal if you wanted to. It's got a lot of heavy stuff going on, a lot of musical stuff. The guitar is really heavy. And, in the old days when your grandparents or your parents would say, oh, rock and roll music is nothing but noise, right? Well, this is a lot of noise, but it's a pleasant noise. You know what I mean? The guitars in here, it's pleasant stuff going on if you like rock and roll. I like it. I call it a pleasant noise sliding. And I've had a good time with this 3 times I've listened to it. Next track, number 8, is called The Kiss of Venus. And as soon as I heard The Kiss of Venus, first thing I thought of was another Paul song from the album Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. It was a song called A Certain Softness. That song, A Certain Softness, and now in The Kiss of Venus, Paul sings in a high falsetto voice. And that's what I said earlier. He knows how to sing now to accompany his limited range now. And I think he does it really well. He sounds very good vocally doing the falsetto, and it works, and the song is engaging. I like the song Kiss of Venus, I do. And I have to tell you that it goes back to what I said. There is nowhere on this album that I listened to Paul singing, and did I ever say, "Oh my God, this guy's voice is shot"? Not once. And I'm a guy, as I say, who call it as it is. If he sounds really bad, he will. I mean, I listened to some reviews where I won't say who, but I know somebody reviewed this album and said it was sad. It was sad to hear Paul trying to sing these songs, and maybe it would have been better if somebody else had sung the songs, if he wrote the songs and arranged them, but let somebody else sing them. I'm having no problem with this, even though maybe I'm putting myself in that mindset. As I say, I accept that Paul's his age, I accept that Paul's weathered the storm vocally, and I accept that this is him as he is now growing with us, and I'm fine with it. So now we go to track number 9. This is a track that a lot of people have talked about and like. It's a track called Seize the Day. And right there is a positive statement. And it's something to think about. Like the lyrics, for example, some of the lyrics. I don't care to be bad. I prefer to think twice. All I know is it's quite a show, but it's still all right to be nice. That's something to think about, don't we? Sometimes we don't look before we leap. Sometimes we could stop and think about it. Some of us, anyway. I know me sometimes. I'm nice when I'm nice, and I'm not when I'm not. But sometimes you can think about it, and it's an agreeable song, even though it's basic and unremarkable. There's nothing remarkable about it, but it does have a positive purpose to it, and the verse seize the day that he keeps saying. He's driving that home, and I like it. Next track, number 10, is the other song, the second song on the album I don't like very much, and it's a track called Deep Down. Isn't it interesting? The 2 tracks I don't like on this album have the word deep in it, deep, deep feeling, and now deep down. I don't dislike Deep Down as much as I dislike deep, deep feeling, but deep down doesn't make an impression on me. It's not bad, but it's not good either. It just meanders. Again, doesn't go anywhere. The words, there's a lot of words, but they all say the same thing. They're not very imaginative. Want to get deep down, want to do it right, want to get deep down and throw a party every night. And that's kind of what he says. Now, you see, if it was a song that I was digging, if I was digging this song, if I really liked it, maybe in its simplicity, I could enjoy. Like something like Bip Bop, for example. Bip Bop says absolutely nothing of wildlife, but yet I enjoy the tune so much that I can deal with it. Does nothing for me. It's just there. This is another song that it goes on way too long. It's disposable. I would skip it. Those are the only 2 songs out of the 11 that I don't care for. Deep, deep feeling and deep down. Number 11, the last track is a slash in it. Winter Bird slash When Winter Comes. Kind of the first quarter of the song is Winter Bird. And it actually starts with the bird with kind of a reprise from where we had at the beginning of the album. Remember, I talked about that biting, sharp guitar? It's a welcome return. It reminds us, like, hey, remember me from the beginning of the album? Well, I'm back again. And I love that guitar at the beginning. It's so nice to have it revisit us at the end. I really like that. So that's the first quarter of it. And then the second part, the three quarters at the end of it is, oops, excuse me, is a song called When Winter Comes. And it's you could tell right away that it's an older song. The song When Winter Comes is from 1992, actually. So right away you can hear Paul's voice is a lot more strong, and it's a lot younger than it was. In a way, it's really out of place on this particular album. The song When Winter Comes doesn't really fit in a way, but yet it's sweet sounding, and it's a really makes a nice ending at the same time to it. I gotta say, it's a nice soft way to end the album. Very pleasant. I actually like it, but it just at the same time feels a little out of place here. Well, that's pretty much my feelings right now on it, and I'm going to give it a temporary kind of rating, but I don't think it's going to change the rating of it. You see, a lot of people like to rate albums of 5 stars. I don't do that. I rate on 4 stars. You see, I rate the way they rate old cinema movies. Cinematically, movies are rated sometimes on a 4 star scale. So out of 4 stars, I would give McCartney 3, based on how I feel now. 3 out of 4 stars, and that's pretty good. Not pretty good, good. It's a good album. Already, I think that it's a good album, not a great album, and it's so good that when I try to rank McCartney 1, McCartney 2, and McCartney 3, I don't even know where I'd put McCartney 3 yet. So it's not like I'm saying, oh no, McCartney 3, I'll place dead last. Maybe I would say that now because I'm more familiar with McCartney 1 and 2, but I don't know. I think it could rise more over time, over as years pass. So I really don't know, but that's a good sign. I think that it's way better, this album, and more enjoyable than I expected it to be, and certainly much better than a lot of the detractors online were already saying without even having heard a single note of it. You know, you have people out there that just want to be stirrers. They want to stir stuff up, and people were calling it McCrappy 3, not even having heard any of it. You know what I mean? They just want to have a reason to find something to pick on. And as I say, if I thought it was lousy, I would have been the first one to tell you. But I think this is a surprisingly enjoyable, good album, and I don't think Paul's age affects it at all. Yes, you can hear, just to repeat myself a little bit and summarize, yes, you can hear that he's older. You can hear that he's not as strong vocally in places as he used to be, but I think he pulls it off, and I think he knows how to play to those weaknesses and how to do it. I think he actually comes out with a pretty respectable album. And from what I'm hearing so far, and critics and fans, the general vibe is kind of where I'm at. I think like kind of a good album. You know, nothing great, nothing great, but a good album. So I'm happy to be able to say that. I hope you'll listen to it. Let me know what you think, and I look forward to all your comments. Thanks, everyone.